Jaewon's body hit the marble floor before anyone in the gallery understood what was happening. 1 second he was laughing, champagne flute loose in his fingers, and the next he was clutching his throat, eyes bulging, legs folding underneath him like they belonged to someone else. The flute shattered. Gasps rippled across the room. Someone screamed his name, and conversations died mid-sentence as 50 pairs of eyes turned toward the boy seizing on the gallery floor. Megan was 3 steps away when it happened. She had already clocked something was wrong 20 minutes earlier, the way his collar sat too tight against his neck, the faint bluish tinge starting at his lips, the swelling she'd seen creeping along his jaw that he kept touching like a man with a bad tooth. She'd almost said something to him then. She wished now that she had. She moved before her brain caught up with her feet. Move. Everyone back. Her voice cut through the chaos like a blade, sharp enough that bodies actually parted. She dropped to her knees beside him, 2 fingers pressed against his throat, watching his chest stutter for air that wasn't coming. He's in anaphylaxis, his airways closing. I need an EpiPen now, or something with epinephrine in it, anybody. 2 private physicians rushed forward almost immediately. One checked Jaewon's pulse. Another loosened his collar while ordering someone to call an ambulance and bring the venue's emergency medical kit. They all recognized the swelling in his throat. They all understood how quickly it was getting worse. But an emergency surgical airway performed on a marble floor with improvised tools was an entirely different matter. One glance passed between them, then another. No one wanted to be the first to make that call. Every second they hesitated, Jaewon's breathing grew weaker. The Beck family never attended public events without their private security detail and 2 personal physicians. Given Kenji Beck's position, planning for every possible emergency wasn't a luxury, it was standard protocol. Did anyone hear me? Megan snapped, ripping his collar open, tilting his chin to clear his airway. He needs epinephrine in the next 90 seconds or he's not going to make it. Somebody move. That was when Sun-hee arrived, shrieking, shoving past the crowd in a blur of silk and diamonds, throwing herself toward her son. And when she saw Megan's hands on him, a stranger's hands, a black woman's hands, hands that didn't belong to anyone she recognized from her social circle, something in her face twisted from terror into something uglier. Get away from him. Sun-hee shoved Megan back so hard she nearly lost her balance. She dropped to her knees beside Jaewon, hands hovering helplessly over him, panic making every movement frantic. Who are you? Where is Dr. Han? Somebody get his physician. Ma'am, Megan said evenly, already reaching for Jaewon again. His airway is closing. If we don't act now, he'll stop breathing. Sun-hee blocked her with an arm. Her eyes swept over Megan from head to toe, her simple evening dress, her dark skin, the absence of a hospital coat or name badge. You're a doctor? Yes. Then where's your hospital? Johns Hopkins. For the briefest moment, hesitation flickered across Sun-hee's face. Then pride won. No, her voice hardened. We have our own doctors. Behind her, Yoon-hee let out a quiet, mocking laugh. Please, she said. Leave the medical decisions to people who actually belong here. Sun-hee didn't move. Her chin lifted instead, pride overriding panic even as her son's lips turned a darker shade of blue on the floor behind her. Megan looked at her, really looked at her, and delivered the only line she had left. Pride won't restart his heart. Good luck. If you think respect in a room full of powerful people depends on status or money, watch this carefully, because in the next few minutes, the person they dismissed will become the only one standing between life and death. And if you're new here, subscribe for more stories like this. Megan turned on her heel and walked straight out of the gallery, her heels clicking against marble in a rhythm that sounded almost peaceful compared to the screaming chaos she left behind. Nobody stopped her. Nobody chased after her. Outside, the night air hit Megan's face and she exhaled hard, hands trembling slightly, already pulling out her phone to call a car. She told herself she'd done what she could. She told herself it wasn't her fault. But some small, stubborn part of her kept replaying his face, the way his lips had gone from blue to something darker, and she hated that she'd walked away with him still on that floor. Inside, the chaos hadn't stopped. It had only gotten worse. Kenji walked back into the gallery less than 2 minutes after stepping out for a call, and the moment he crossed the threshold, his entire body went rigid. The room that had been filled with soft jazz and clinking glasses 20 minutes earlier was now a chaos of screaming guests and frozen staff. He pushed through the crowd like a man wading through water, shoulders cutting a path, and when he saw his brother on the floor, barely conscious now, his breath a thin, wet rasp, something inside Kenji's chest went cold and still. What happened? His voice didn't rise. It dropped low and lethal, the kind of calm that made grown men flinch. What happened to my brother? The two private physicians stammered over each other, stepping back as if his fury had physical weight. It's a rare complication, sir. We don't have the equipment. We don't have the surgical tools for an airway this far gone. We need an advanced trauma team. One of the gallery staff was already on the phone near the wall, voice tight with panic. Yes, anaphylaxis, his throat's closing. Please hurry. Kenji could hear enough of it to know help was coming, but he could also see his brother's lips darkening by the second, the rise and fall of his chest growing shallower. An ambulance meant traffic. It meant elevators, stretchers, hallways. It meant minutes his brother might not have left to spend waiting. Kenji dropped to his knees beside J1, gripping his shoulder. His airway wasn't fully closed yet. J1 was still pulling in thin, ragged scrapes of air through a throat swollen, nearly shut, but it was closing, narrowing with every breath. Once it shut completely, there would be nothing left to wait for, ambulance or not. That was when Ariam stepped forward, her face pale, voice shaking but urgent. Kenji. She grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. Kenji, listen to me. A woman was just here. She knew exactly what this was the second she looked at him. She said she was a chief surgical resident from Johns Hopkins. She tried to help him. Then where is she? Kenji's eyes snapped up, scanning the room. Bring her here. Now. Ariam's face crumpled. Mother sent her away. Sun-hee, kneeling beside her son with tears streaking her makeup, looked up at the sound of her name. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Kenji turned to her slowly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. What did you do? Sun-hee's voice cracked. I didn't know who she was, Kenji. She looked like. She looked like what, mother? His voice was quiet now, quieter than before, and somehow that made it worse. She looked like someone who could save him, and you sent her away because of what she looked like? Sun-hee said nothing. There was nothing to say. Kenji stood. His jaw was tight, his hands curled into fists at his sides, and when he spoke again, the words came out slow and final, each one a verdict. You drove away the only person in this city who can save his life. He didn't wait for a response. He turned and walked, fast, toward the door, barking orders into his phone as he moved. His men scrambled into motion around him, but Kenji didn't wait for them either. He went out the front himself, alone, bypassing the 4 bodyguards who tried to fall into step beside him. Stay, he ordered, not even glancing back. I need to do this myself. Outside, the street was quiet except for the hum of traffic a block away. Barely 4 minutes had passed since Megan walked out. She hadn't even managed to flag down a car yet, still standing at the curb with her phone lit up in her hand. Kenji spotted her almost immediately and crossed the street at a near run. Doctor. His voice came out rougher than he meant it to. Megan turned, startled, taking in the sight of him tall, composed even now, but with something raw and desperate cracking through the polish. Please. I need your help. He's still breathing, but it's getting worse by the minute, and there's no time to wait for anyone else. You're the brother. It wasn't a question. Kenji, he said. And yes, please. I am begging you. Megan's expression didn't soften, not exactly, but something in it shifted recognition, maybe of a man who actually understood the stakes. Your mother made it very clear I wasn't welcome. My mother was wrong. Kenji's voice dropped lower, more urgent. I don't ask for favors, doctor. I don't beg. I have never in my life gotten on my knees for anyone. He paused, and then, astonishingly, he bowed his head, not a nod, not a polite tilt, but a full, deep bow, the kind that should have been impossible for a man who commanded fear in every room he entered. I am begging for a life. For a long moment, Megan just looked at him. I'm not doing this for you, she said finally, already moving past him back toward the gallery, voice clipped and cold. I'm doing it because I swore an oath. Even if your family doesn't think I look the part. Kenji didn't argue. He just turned and followed her, matching her pace. Back inside, the room parted for her without a word. Sunhee opened her mouth to apologize, to beg, to say something, but Megan didn't even look at her. She dropped to the floor beside Jaewon, pressing 2 fingers to his throat, feeling the pulse stutter weak and fast beneath her fingertips. An ambulance can't get here in time, and it wouldn't matter if it could, she said, already snapping orders for the gallery's first aid kit, a pocket knife, anything sharp and clean, a pen with the ink cartridge removed. By the time he's in a hospital bed, his airway will already be closed. I need to open it now, in this room, or he won't make it to that hospital at all. The room froze. Doctor, one of the private physicians whispered. You're not seriously planning a field cricothyrotomy. Megan didn't even look at him. I need a flashlight. Someone handed her a phone. Clean towels. They appeared. Alcohol. A bottle was thrust into her hand. Good. Her movements became frighteningly calm, every instruction crisp, every motion deliberate. You're really going to do this? Another physician asked quietly. Unless you'd like to watch him suffocate. Silence. Nobody spoke again. Even Kenji found himself holding his breath as Megan worked with the steady confidence of someone who had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times before ever needing it. The room watched in stunned silence as she worked with terrifying precision, hands steady despite the makeshift tools, voice low and controlled as she narrated each step to herself like she'd done this 100 times before, because she had. 90 seconds. 120. No one in the room dared to move, no one dared to speak, until Jaewon's chest suddenly heaved, a raw, desperate gasp tearing out of him as air finally found its way back into his lungs. Color began creeping back into his lips. His eyes fluttered open, confused and frightened, but alive. Someone in the crowd actually sobbed with relief. Sunhee pressed both hands over her mouth, shaking. He needs to get to a hospital immediately for proper stabilization, Megan said, already standing, wiping her hands. But he's not going to die on this floor tonight. The paramedics arrived a few minutes later, already close, since the call had gone out the moment Jaewon collapsed, to find him breathing, stable, already stabilized by Megan with whatever resources the gallery had. They took over from there, Jaewon lifted onto a stretcher, his mother walking alongside him with her hand clutched in his, openly weeping. Behind them, unseen, Yoonhee stepped out of the gallery and froze. She had spent months convincing herself that the awkward blind date Sunhee arranged had only gone badly because Kenji hadn't given her a fair chance. She'd always believed there would be another opportunity. Now she watched him, completely focused on another woman, speaking to her like she mattered in a way Yoonhee had never experienced. A smile flickered across his face, brief but real. Something cold twisted in her chest. Outside, in the cool night air, Kenji found Megan again, standing slightly apart from the commotion, watching the ambulance doors close. Thank you. His voice was quieter now, stripped of the desperate edge from before. There isn't a way to properly thank someone for that. You don't have to. Megan glanced at him, something tired but not unkind in her expression. I'd do it for anyone. I know. Kenji studied her for a moment. That's what makes it worse, what happened in there. She didn't respond to that. Instead, she said, I should go, and turned to check her phone again, presumably for the car she'd ordered and then abandoned twice now. Let me get you a driver. Please. Kenji's tone was earnest, almost boyish in its sincerity, a sharp contrast to the controlled menace he'd carried inside. It's the least I can offer. I'm fine taking an Uber. At least let me walk you to the corner, he said, and something about the simplicity of the request, not demanding, not transactional, just a small offered kindness, made her nod. They walked together down the quiet street, and somewhere between the gallery and the corner, the conversation turned easy in a way neither of them expected. He asked about her work. She found herself telling him about residency, about the absurd hours, about why she'd come to the gallery in the first place, a rare night off, a friend's invitation, a chance to feel like a person instead of a doctor for one evening. He laughed at something she said, an actual laugh, unguarded, and the sound surprised them both. Behind them, unseen, Yoonhee stepped out of the gallery and froze. She watched Kenji's face, open, warm, smiling in a way she had never once seen directed at her in their single disastrous blind date months ago, angled entirely toward the woman walking beside him. Something cold and ugly twisted in her chest. She didn't approach. She didn't say anything. She just turned and walked back inside, jaw clenched so tight it ached. The next morning, Megan walked the corridors of Johns Hopkins on autopilot, exhausted from the night before, coffee in hand, when she spotted a familiar figure at the reception desk. She blinked, certain she was imagining it. Kenji. He turned, and something in his face eased at the sight of her. Dr. Madhu. What are you doing here? My brother was admitted overnight for observation. Room 204. He paused. I didn't expect to run into you so soon, though I suppose I should have. You did mention you worked here. Small world, she said, a faint smile tugging at her mouth despite herself. How's he doing? Recovering. Asking for food, which the nurses tell me is a good sign. He hesitated. I know you're working, but would you want to see him? My mother is there. Megan's expression flickered, the memory of the night before resurfacing. Kenji caught it. She wants to apologize, he said quietly. I think she needs to. Megan considered it, then nodded. I have a few minutes. They walked together to room 204. Inside, Sunhee sat in the chair beside Jaewon's bed, looking smaller than she had the night before, stripped of jewels and composure, dark circles under her eyes. The moment she saw Megan in the doorway, her whole body seemed to crumble. Dr. Madhu. Her voice broke immediately. She stood, hands trembling. I am so incredibly sorry for last night. I don't know what was going through my head. There's no excuse for what I said to you, none, and you saved my son's life after She stopped, pressing a hand over her mouth, tears spilling freely now. Thank you. Thank you for saving him despite how I treated you. Megan's expression softened, the professional mask cracking just slightly into something more human. You were scared. Fear makes people say things they regret. She glanced at Jaewon, who managed a weak, grateful smile from the bed. I'm glad he's okay. I don't deserve your grace, Sunhee said. Maybe not, Megan said simply, without cruelty. But I'm offering it anyway. The tension in the room broke, something gentler settling in its place. Jaewon spoke up from the bed, his voice still hoarse. I owe you my life. Genuinely. You owe me nothing. Just don't go eating shellfish at parties anymore, Megan said, and the room actually laughed, the sound easing something tight in everyone's chest. Later, Kenji and Megan found themselves at the hospital canteen, 2 paper cups of bad coffee between them, conversation flowing easier than either expected. He told her, half joking, that his mother had already started referring to her as the doctor who saved this family, a title Megan found both flattering and faintly absurd. She's not wrong, Kenji said. You did. I did my job. You did considerably more than your job. He turned his cup slowly between his hands, then looked up at her with a directness that made her pulse skip slightly. I'd like to take you to coffee. Properly. Not in a hospital, not as a thank you, just because I'd like to know you better. Megan studied him for a long moment, weighing something internally, before a small smile broke through. All right. Coffee. Properly. His phone buzzed before he could respond, an urgent call from one of his men, and he excused himself with visible reluctance, already half distracted by whatever crisis awaited him outside the hospital's walls. Unseen by either of them, Yoonhee stood near the canteen entrance, having come to check on Jaewon, watching the exchange with her arms crossed tight against her chest, fury simmering beneath her carefully composed expression. She found Megan alone 2 days later, cornering her in an isolated hallway near the surgical wing. Before approaching, she'd quickly slid a ring onto her finger, angling her hand so the stone caught the fluorescent light. I don't know what game you're playing with Kenji, Yoonhee said, voice low and venomous, but you need to shut it down. You're wasting your time. Megan blinked, genuinely confused. Excuse me? Who even are you? Yoonhee thrust her hand forward, diamond glittering. I'm his fiancé. Stay away from him. For your own good. Megan looked at the ring, then at Yoonhee's face, something flat and unreadable settling over her features. She didn't argue. She didn't explain herself. She simply said, nodded, and walked past her without another word, leaving Yoonhee standing alone in the hallway, breathing hard. 2 days later, Jae-won was discharged, fully recovered, and Kenji tracked Megan down at the hospital to finally get her number and settle on a date for their coffee. As they talked near the elevators, Megan mentioned it almost as an afterthought. "Your fiancé came to see me, by the way. She was pretty hysterical about me staying away from you." Kenji's expression went blank. "My what?" "Your fiancé. Showed me the ring and everything." For a moment, Kenji just stared at her, processing, before a short, disbelieving laugh broke out of him, dark, almost incredulous. "I don't have a fiancé. I don't have a girlfriend. My mother arranged one blind date with a woman months ago, and I ended it within an hour because there was nothing there. She's been operating on a fantasy ever since, apparently." He shook his head, equal parts amused and irritated. "I'm sorry. I'll handle it." Megan raised an eyebrow, almost laughing now too. "She had a whole ring." "She bought herself a ring," Kenji said flatly, "for a relationship that exists exclusively in her head." He exhaled, then looked at Megan properly. "I really am sorry. That has nothing to do with me or with us." "Is there an us?" Megan asked, the corner of her mouth lifting. "I'd like there to be," Kenji said, and she handed over her number without further hesitation. That same afternoon, Kenji found Yoonhee waiting near his car, clearly anticipating a different conversation than the one she got. "We had one date," he said, before she could speak, his tone cold and final. "My mother recommended you." "My mother is not me. I am not interested. I was never interested, and that has not changed in 6 months. Do not approach Dr. Madhu again. Do you understand me?" Yoonhee's face went through several emotions at once: shock, humiliation, fury, before settling into something brittle. She didn't answer. She just turned and walked away, heels striking the pavement hard enough to betray exactly how rattled she was. A month passed. Coffee dates turned into dinners turned into something steadier, and soon enough Kenji and Megan were unmistakably, officially together. Yoonhee, watching from the sidelines with mounting desperation, finally ran to Sunhee, expecting sympathy, expecting an ally in her campaign to reclaim a relationship that had never existed. Instead, Sunhee looked at her with something close to pity. "I suggested you to my son once, months ago. That is all I did. I cannot force his choices, and frankly, after everything, I would not want to. If he does not want you, you need to move on. For your own sake." Yoonhee left that conversation with nothing, her last potential ally gone. Kenji invited Megan to a formal family dinner not long after, and the moment she crossed the threshold of the Beck home, Sunhee pulled her into a warm, tight hug, murmuring her gratitude all over again. Jae-won, fully recovered and grinning, hugged her too, leaning in to whisper, "My brother hasn't stopped smiling for a month. I know it's because of you." Dinner was warm, easy, full of laughter until Sunhee, with the bluntness only a mother could deploy, asked over the main course, "So, when are you two getting married?" Kenji choked on his drink. Ariam burst out laughing. Megan just smiled, unbothered, sipping her wine like she hadn't heard the question at all. The following evening, after a grueling overnight shift, Megan walked to her car in the hospital's mostly empty parking structure, exhaustion heavy in her shoulders. She didn't see Yoonhee until she was already there, stepping out from behind a concrete pillar, eyes wild, voice cracking with barely contained rage. "You think saving his brother gives you the right to ruin my life?" Yoonhee screamed, lunging forward, grabbing a fistful of Megan's coat. Megan didn't hesitate. She shoved Yoonhee back hard, putting distance between them instantly, years of composure under pressure kicking in even now. "Get off me." Yoonhee, unhinged, lunged again, hands raised, and Megan moved without thinking, years of pent-up restraint finally snapping loose. Her right hook landed clean against Yoonhee's jaw, the impact sharp and final, dropping her instantly to the pavement. Megan stood over her, breathing hard but steady, voice low and lethal. "Don't ever try me again. The next time you cross my path, you will deeply regret it." Yoonhee, stunned and terrified, scrambled to her feet and fled to her car, tires screeching as she peeled out of the garage. The next morning, Kenji was at Megan's apartment, checking in the way he'd started doing daily, when she mentioned the parking lot incident almost casually while pouring coffee. Kenji's entire demeanor shifted instantly, fury flashing across his face as he reached for her hands, checking her knuckles. "She touched you. Don't worry." Megan smiled faintly, unbothered. "I handled her myself. She won't be coming back." Kenji's joy tightened anyway. "I'll make sure of that." He found Yoonhee that same day, his voice ice cold and final. "You touched my woman. If you ever breathe near her again, I won't just call the police. I will personally ensure you sit in a cell for a very, very long time. Move on. This is the last warning you will ever get from me." Yoonhee said nothing. There was nothing left to say. She simply nodded, understanding finally, completely, that there was no version of this story where she won. A month later, beneath a sky full of stars in a quiet garden Kenji had spent weeks arranging in secret, he got down on one knee and asked Megan to marry him. She said yes before he even finished the question. A year after a wedding attended by Mafia royalty and world-class surgeons alike, an unlikely but joyful mix of two worlds finally merged. Megan and Kenji welcomed their first child into a family that had learned, the hard way, exactly what real strength looked like. If this story proved anything, it's that the people they overlook the easiest are usually the ones they should never have underestimated. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, because the next story will be even more dangerous.